The Venezuelan government denounced the hijacking by the United States of an aircraft used by President Nicolás Maduro. In China, Foreign Minister Wang Yi held a ministerial conference ahead of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation in Beijing. And in Palestine, the UN-led polio vaccination campaign continues in Gaza's Nuseirat refugee camp. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The Venezuelan government denounced a hijacking by the United States of an aircraft used by President Nicolás Maduro. Caracas denounced before the international community that once again, the authorities of the United States illegally confiscated a Venezuelan aircraft, justifying themselves with the coercive measures that they unilaterally and illegally impose around the world. In turn, the Bolivarian Republic stated that this new act of dispossession has demonstrated that Washington uses its economic and military power to intimidate and pressure states such as the Dominican Republic so that they serve as accomplices in its delinquent acts. The Venezuelan government affirmed that it reserves their measures to respond to this new affront by Washington, assuring that it is part of a new escalation against the Venezuelan institutionality. This is the second aircraft that the U.S. government steals from Venezuela, the first being the teleSUR aircraft owned by Conviasa. Also in Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro asserted that no one is above the laws and institutions of the Venezuelan state, following repeated attempts by the far right to deny the legitimacy of the electoral power. During the transmission of his program Con Maduro Más, the Venezuelan president denounced the attempts of the far right to deny the legitimacy of the institutions of the state after their failure in the presidential elections of last July 28th. In this sense, the Venezuelan head of state pointed out that the former presidential far-right candidate Edmundo González Urrutia resorts to these type of methods to take the power by violating and disrespecting the constitutional laws of the country. Maduro also stated that it was contradictory for the former right-wing candidate to participate in an electoral process when he did not attend any of the summons of the National Electoral Council and to assure he would not accept the results if they were not favorable to him. In turn, the Venezuelan president urged the peoples worldwide to work on building up an alternative cyberspace free and independent from the domains of U.S. imperialism.
On my last speech before the United Nations General Assembly, I raised this great issue. Even with the presidents, I address the topic every time they call me, or I call them, that the world has to free itself and build an alternative cyberspace, not controlled, not poisoned, which does not serve to manipulate and to establish these cyberspace warfare systems. Look at the kind of cyber attack that is being mounted here on social media, but another attack was on the transmission system of the National Electoral Council. Meanwhile, they were willing to shut down the power grid on July 28th, and we prevented it, but they managed to destroy the nodes and the systems that they themselves create.
On Monday, the Public Ministry of Venezuela issued an arrest warrant for former presidential candidate Edmundo González Urrutia. The arrest warrant specifies the alleged commission of the crimes of usurpation of functions, punishable under Article 213, forgery of public documents provided for and punishable under Article 319, instigation to disobey the law, punishable under Article 283, conspiracy provided for and punished by Article 132 of the Penal Code, sabotage of systems damage, punished by Article 7 of the Computer Crimes, association provided for and punished by Article 37 of the Organic Law Against Organized Crime and Financing of Terrorism. And the invitation of President Vladimir Putin to his counterpart Nicolás Maduro to the next BRICS summit generated expectations in Venezuela with the likely entry of the country to the Organization of Emerging Countries. Let's see the details in the following coverage from Caracas with our correspondent Ignacio Lemos.
The Venezuelan economy recovers despite being hit by the blockade for years. The central bank announced that the country achieved 13 quarters of economic growth and the GDP ramped up from 8.40% to 8.78% in the first quarter of 2024.
I think the trend is upwards. Let's hope that by 2025, our economy improves even more, that we surge our economy even more, and that Venezuela be more developed.
There are still challenges in the process of economic reactivation. The Piccadilly company trades locally produced shoes imported from southern Brazil. Its owner refers to the hurdles imposed by the blockade, such as the need to triangulate the maritime transport of the merchandise so that it arrives from a neighboring country.
The merchant ship has to, instead of sailing along one sea, which is this one, it has to travel on another sea and has to transship in Cartagena, and that represents more cost on the freight side, not more on the shoes, but on the freight, and it implies more time to reschedule the orders. It is a month and a half, a month and 10 days for the merchandise to arrive, when in the past, if it came by this sea in 10 or 11 days, the merchandise was here.
New routes of international cooperation are open for Venezuela. President Nicolás Maduro was invited to the BRICS summit in the Russian city of Kazan on October 23 and 24. According to Foreign Minister Ivan Gil, the country is already in the organization's orbit.
We have the support of all the BRICS members. I was in Russia a few months ago and met with all the foreign ministers. With the 10 foreign ministers of the BRICS, we have noteworthy support for Venezuela to work with the BRICS. In fact, we are already working. Our ministers are attending meetings of the BRICS. We are participating in the commissions. We are participating in the exchange of information.
Russian President Vladimir Putin deems that Maduro's participation will enrich debates and help identify promising areas of multilateral cooperation.
For Venezuela, as for many countries globally, the strengthening of the BRICS and joining the BRICS would bring multiple benefits. First of all, full inclusion into a new dynamic of international economic relations based once again not on the exploitation of the population, but on cooperation, on the development of all in a world of equals and, secondly, in a much safer world.
The entry of Venezuela into the BRICS Plus means a leap over the barriers imposed by the blockade and the possibility of opening trade to an organization that comprises 45% of the global population.
Well, it'll be very positive because Venezuela will be able to export everything we produce here and not necessarily with the US currency, the US dollar. We can export with our own currency and that will be an advantage for Venezuela, both for importers and exporters, a leverage for Venezuela, and it will further be paramount for our region since Brazil and Venezuela, if they are in that connection with the BRICS, it will be very crucial.
Venezuela's impact on geopolitical and energy matters turns out to be a fundamental factor for cooperation in a group of countries of the global south that is growing rapidly towards leadership and world trade.
Let's now take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back, stay with us. Welcome back. In Bolivia, the fourth criminal sentencing court of the city of El Alto decided to reschedule for this Wednesday the trial against former de facto president, former Senator Yanni Áñez, and 17 other former officials who were allegedly involved in the Sencata massacre. The Minister of Justice, Iman Lima, declared that the trial against Yanni Áñez, Arturo Murillo, Fernando Lopez, and 15 other people for the Sencata case has been rescheduled for Wednesday, September 4th. On the other hand, Attorney General Cesar Siles assured that the prosecutor's office and the Attorney General's office have already provided sufficient evidence to achieve the maximum sentence of 30 years for Ms. Áñez and others involved in the death of the demonstrator. In Chile, preventive detention measures against the former Chilean mayor and Communist Party leader Daniel Jadue is revoked. Former Mayor Daniel Jadue is charged with alleged corruption, tax fraud, and swindling in the negotiations of the Chilean Association of Municipalities with Popular Pharmacies. In this context, the court replaced the measure with total house arrest and maintained the national arrest warrant against the former mayor. Should be noted that Jadue is known for having promoted various socialist policies in Chile that have benefited hundreds of residents of the popular municipality of Recoleta.
I am very happy with this ruling, because this ruling did not give or assaulted the conclusion of any crime nor my participation in it. How to prove my innocence and only regret all the mistreatment of all those who have boasted and those who have feasted with the loss of freedom of any human being.
What the judge's resolution does is to totally and completely destroy the totality of the alleged crimes that were being attributed to him, because with the new antecedents, it is evident that these crimes never existed.
In Ecuador, the area burned by the forest fire that has been raging for 10 days in the south of the country exceeds 4,800 hectares, according to the latest balance published by the Ecuadorian government's National Risk Management Secretariat. The fire started in the rural locality of San Antonio de las Aradas, belonging to the municipality of Quilanga, and adverse weather conditions such as high temperatures and strong winds worsened the situation. Since the weekend, Ecuadorian Air Force helicopters have been continuously dropping water on the largest forest fire in Ecuador in recent years. A Colombian Air Force tanker was also expected to join the firefighting efforts on Monday, in addition to Peruvian air crews. In the Philippines, a strong tropical storm in the northern part of the country killed at least 10 people, while 10 others remain injured. Storm Yagi, known as Enteng in the Philippines, caused major damage on the island of Luzon, with heavy rain sustained winds of 75 km per hour and maximum gust of up to 90 km per hour. The 10 victims died from drowning, while 10 others are injured, and at least 147,000 have been affected and displaced from their homes as a result of the floods. The storm also caused the cancellation of flights and the suspension of all classes in the metropolitan area.
The flood was high, up to the neck. It was very high over there too. I was here yesterday, but I had to leave. I was alone.
I can't start cleaning up because the floodwater is still high, up until here. I just went out to buy food. I don't have food left at home. I'm already hungry.
In other news, in China, Foreign Minister Wang Yi held a ministerial conference ahead of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation in Beijing. The FOSAC 2024 summit will run from September 4th to the 6th. This year's summit will have 4 high-level meetings on the topics of state governance, industrialization and agricultural modernization, peace and security, and high-quality belt and road cooperation. The summit will adopt 2 outcome documents, the Declaration and the Action Plan, to build major consensus and chart a path for implementing high-quality China-Africa cooperation. China is Africa's largest trading partner, with bilateral trade hitting $167.8 billion in the first half of 2024.
Currently, the changes of the world are accelerating, and the world has entered a new period of turbulence and transformation. The collective rise of the Global South, represented by China and Africa, profoundly affects the process of world history. We will work together to promote modernization and jointly build a high-level China-Africa community with a shared future. This is in line with the inevitable requirements of historical progress and reflects the common aspirations of the Chinese and African people.
Senegal's Foreign Minister Yassine Fall told ministers at the conference that she hopes China offers more support on the implementation of Africa's development blueprint.
Therefore we, Africans and Chinese, must continue to work together to ensure Africa's development by 2063, drawing inspiration from the Chinese model. But of course adapting it to Africa's situation in order for Africa to ensure its food sovereignty and that it's able to transform its agricultural products on the African continent for added value and industrialization.
We now have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to re-watch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. We found your break, don't go away. Welcome back. Health workers vaccinated children against polio in the Nuseirat refugee camp as part of a large-scale campaign led by the UN in the Gaza Strip. Authorities hope to prevent an outbreak in the territory devastated by Israel's genocidal war. The campaign aims to reach some 640,000 children, and the authorities plan to vaccinate children in central Gaza until Wednesday before moving on to the more devastated north and south. On their part, Israel has agreed to limited pauses in the fighting to facilitate the campaign. Health Director of the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, Akihiro Saita, said the organization is vaccinating 90% of children under the age of 10.
We regularly check the sewages in all the countries in the world to make sure that there is no polio virus. And then we did it in Gaza. And we checked the sewage in the laboratory designated by WHO. And then we found that there are poliovirus type 2 from the polio vaccine. And because of this, that we need to vaccinate all the children less than 10 years in Gaza. And we unfortunately had one case of polio recently. And to address this polio campaign, WHO, World Health Organization, and the UNICEF brought 1.2 million doses of polio type 2 vaccine to Gaza recently.
These conditions, the lack of cleaning supplies, overcrowding, and the spread of sewage water, we decided that our children must be vaccinated to protect them.
Meanwhile, in the United States, pro-Palestinian demonstrators marched in the streets of New York City in solidarity with the Palestinian cause.
Demand arms embargo and demand a permanent ceasefire and demand people in Gaza should go back to their homes, should be free of Israeli occupation and just to release all hostages. This is the only way that leads to that.
We are here in Union Square today because there is no words to describe the unbelievable genocide which is taking place in front of the whole world, and the whole world is silent. We are here as Jewish people to say that we are embarrassed with what the Zionist state of Israel is doing.
In our news, the Democratic Republic of the Congo authorities reported that at least 129 people were killed during a prison break attempt over the weekend at the Makala prison in the capital, Kinshasa.
The provisional death toll stands at 129, 24 of whom were shot after warnings. The others were jostled, suffocated, and some women raped. The commission also identified 59 injured, who are currently being treated by the government for appropriate care. The government is delighted that calm has been restored, deplores these unfortunate incidents and offers its deepest condolences to the families and friends of the victims. Investigations are continuing and the public will be informed of the outcome.
Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin met with his Mongolian counterpart Ukhna Kurulsuk in Ulaanbaatar on Tuesday. During the meeting, Putin thanks Kurulsuk for the invitation, noting that relations between the two countries are already developing on a new basis, and despite the difficulties, the growth trajectory of trade relations is being maintained. After signing a series of bilateral agreements in various fields, Kurulsuk declared that Russia is one of the main trade partners of Mongolia. He noted the increase in the volume of trade between the two countries in recent years. The Mongolian president also declared that Putin's visit is of great importance for enriching friendly relations and mutually beneficial cooperation between the two countries. Agreements were signed for the further development of cooperation in environment, education, health, humanitarian fields, and others.
Russia is one of Mongolia's main foreign economic partners, and in the first 7 months of this year, trade turnover has increased by over 21%. Moreover, commercial settlements between our two countries are carried out almost entirely in currencies alternative to the dollar.
For his part, the Mongolian president expressed his confidence in Russia's leadership in matters of international cooperation.
Let us express our confidence that our eternal neighbor, Russia, will show leadership in actions for world peace, security, sustainable development, and the welfare of mankind, and will make a valuable contribution to strengthening the trust, mutual respect, and cooperation of the countries of the world.
And as part of his tour of Asia and the Pacific, Pope Francis landed on Tuesday morning in Jakarta, capital of Indonesia, home to the largest number of Muslims in the world. On his arrival at the city's Nuseirat, the Pope greeted a group of refugees hosted by Jesuit Refugee Service, orphan children raised by nuns, and homeless people. On Wednesday, the Supreme Pontiff will hold a meeting with outgoing President Joko Widodo and deliver his first speech at the presidential palace to more than 300 people. Jakarta is the first stop on France's tour of Asia and the Pacific, which will take him to Papua New Guinea, East Timor, and Singapore till September 13th on his longest trip to date. In Uruguay, renowned football player Luis Suarez announced his retirement from international football, revealing in tears that on Friday he will play his last game for his country, the 2026 World Cup qualifier match against Paraguay in Montevideo. 37-year-old Suarez made his Uruguay debut 17 years ago in 2007 under manager Oscar Tabares. His prolific international career with La Celeste includes 69 goals and 39 assists in 142 matches, which makes him the top scorer in the history of the Uruguayan team. Precisely, Suarez represented his nation at 8 major international tournaments, playing in 4 World Cups, including the 2010 edition, where he scored 3 goals as Uruguay reached the semi-final. In addition, he scored and assisted in the 2011 Copa America final, helping Uruguay beat Paraguay to win the country's 4th title.
It is difficult, yes, very difficult. But this is the moment when I can play my last match with the national team in peace. I'm going to play it with the same illusion that I played my first match in 2007, with the same passion, with the same illusion as that boy who started at the age of 19. It is difficult, it is very difficult because it was not an easy decision. But I have the peace of mind that I gave everything until the last game and that the spark did not fade away little by little. And that is why I made the decision to do it now.
Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.